Hey up internet, and welcome back to On the Sofa Live. If you're new, do subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay in the loop. Okay, here we go. We've got quite a bit to get through this evening. So let's get right into it, shall we? We're going to be talking quite a bit about Andy Burnham, the new Prime Minister. So let's start with the top story for tonight. This is from The Mirror by Dave Burke and Alexander Brown. Andy Burnham's cabinet, who's in and who's out, as Angela Rayner returns and Rachel Reeves loses job. Andy Burnham has unveiled his top team as Rachel Reeves and David Lammy departed the government, with the new Prime Minister pledging the moment when Britain starts to believe again. And it looks like we've got some footage here. Let's have a look. Ooh. I didn't aiming for that to happen. Let's try that again, shall we? Is it going to work? It doesn't look like it. Live streaming, everyone. Okay, let's forget about that. Actually, let's move on. Oh, it's working now. Andy Burnham there. The article goes on. Chancellor Rachel Reeves was among the high-profile names axed as the new Prime Minister installed his top team, with John Healey named as her surprise replacement. Now that's interesting, because John Healey resigned because he was complaining that Starmer wasn't giving him enough money for defence. But now he's in charge of the purse strings, as it were. So quite possibly he now has the power to spend as much as he likes on defence. There's always money for war. But let's see what he does. Shabana Mahmood remains Home Secretary. And in my opinion, that is a mistake. That is very controversial in my opinion. While Ed Miliband was named as Foreign Secretary, and there was a return to government for Angela Rayner less than a year after she stepped down as Deputy Prime Minister. Wes Streeting became Defence Secretary, while Lucy Powell took over as Education Secretary from Bridget Phillipson. Ms. Phillipson remains in Cabinet as Minister for Women and Inequalities. Other high-profile departures include Keir Starmer's Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, good riddance, as well as Liz Kendall, Peter Kyle and Steve Reed. There was a return to the top table for Angela Rayner and Louise Haigh. So who's in? John Healey, Chancellor of the Exchequer. In one of his first surprise moves as Prime Minister, Andy Burnham announced John Healey as his new Chancellor, replacing Rachel Reeves. It comes just weeks after his dramatic resignation as Defence Secretary, lashing out at the Treasury for not setting aside enough cash for defence, which is what I was saying just now. And now he's in charge of the Treasury. One of the longest-serving MPs on the Labour benches, Mr Healey has been in Parliament since 1997 and held government roles under Tony Blair, Gordon Brown and Keir Starmer. There he is. Mr Healey last month threw Mr Starmer's government into turmoil, saying the Prime Minister's defence investment plan failed to meet the challenges the country faces. A respected figure on the international stage, Mr Healey has also been a housing minister and junior Treasury minister in the early 2000s, so he does have experience in his new field. Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary. Is this an in, or is it just a continuation? I mean, right, rather than, this isn't a new role for her because she remains in the same role. But anyway, let's carry on. Some Whitehall mischief in recent days saw Shabana Mahmood linked with the Chancellor job, but Andy Burnham had other ideas and decided to keep her in post. Miss Mahmood is a lightning rod figure for the Labour left, but has a record for delivery which few can match. It has been well known that she wants to remain in the Home Office. And there's a picture of her there. Just last week, she set out a controversial immigration and asylum bill with measures including charging successful asylum seekers £10,000 to cover the cost of support they received. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. This is just cruelty for cruelty's sake. This is just performative cruelty. It is so fucking cruel. I really don't like her at all. And I'm not alone in that. A separate set of hardline immigration policies, which include doubling the standard time a person qualifies for indefinite leave to remain, sparked a backbench fury last year. Miss Mahmood, who as a youngster helped her dad run a corner shop, often observes that she is the most right-wing person in the room. Yeah, I think she'd be more at home in the Tory party, or even Reform, not the Labour Party. A lawyer who studied at Oxford, the cabinet member also chairs Lawyers' National Executive Committee and was initially Justice Secretary when Labour came into power. She held a junior shadow Treasury role under Ed Miliband, but refused to serve on the front bench under Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, that tracks. Ed Miliband, Foreign Secretary. If some reports were to be believed a few weeks ago, Ed Miliband was in line to become Chancellor under Andy Burnham. But the former Labour Party leader has instead been appointed Foreign Secretary, the same post his former nemesis David Cameron took in the last months of the Tory government. An experienced operator, Mr. Miliband, has served as Energy Secretary since the general election, becoming the face of the government's net zero drive. There he is. He has been an MP for over 2 decades, representing Doncaster North since 2005. Following Gordon Brown's resignation, he became leader of the opposition. He beat rivals including his brother David and, awkwardly, Mr. Burnham, who was eliminated in the first round. A popular figure on the Labour left, he was thought to be on the cusp of becoming Prime Minister at the 2015 general election following positive polling, but a wipeout in Scotland proved costly and the Tories got a comfortable majority. Louise Haigh, First Secretary of State and Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. One of Andy Burnham's key allies in Parliament, Louise Haigh, returns to the cabinet after more than 18 months on the backbenches. She was Keir Starmer's pick as Transport Secretary when Labour returned to government. During her 5 months in office, she pushed through groundbreaking legislation to bring railway companies into public ownership. And there's a picture of her there. Miss Haigh also secured more than £1 billion to improve bus services across the country, but she was forced to quit after it emerged she had pleaded guilty to fraud by forced representation in 2014 by reporting a work mobile phone stolen, only to later find it in a drawer. Earlier this month, Miss Haigh, a key figure on the Labour soft left, revealed Mr. Burnham had been planning what he would do in Number 10 for more than a year. She said he has spent that time thinking very deeply about how the country is run, what holds regions like Greater Manchester, and therefore most regions and the devolved nations of this country back. Pat McFadden, Work and Pensions Secretary. One of Keir Starmer's closest allies, Pat McFadden, has a reputation as a safe pair of hands across Westminster. He was shifted to the Department of Work and Pensions last year in a reshuffle after welfare reforms championed by Liz Kendall had been torn up. Mr. McFadden was drawing up his own proposals under Mr. Starmer, but Andy Burnham has already indicated he does not favour headline-grabbing cuts. The Wolverhampton South East MP was Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster from 2024, having previously held ministerial roles under both Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. His calm demeanour is respected across government, and he is often dispatched to face the media on difficult days. Yvette Cooper, Health Secretary. Yvette Cooper is one of the most experienced figures in Andy Burnham's new team. Since 2024, she has held two of the great offices of state, firstly as Home Secretary and then as Foreign Secretary. She was Work and Pension Secretary and Chief Secretary to the Treasury under Gordon Brown, and held junior ministerial roles under both Gordon Brown and Tony Blair. There she is. Ms. Cooper stood for party leader in 2015 after Ed Miliband stood down, losing out to Jeremy Corbyn. She is another name who has been linked with the Chancellor's job. Angela Rayner, Housing and Local Government Secretary. The former Deputy Prime Minister is back in government following months of speculation about a leadership challenge. Angela Rayner has made Housing, Communities and Local Government Secretary following the general election and champions the landmark Employment Rights Act. A popular figure on the left of the party, she has spoken out against Shabana Mahmood's immigration reforms, branding them un-British, but will have to fall in line when she returns to government. The thing is, I used to rate Angela Rayner. I used to quite like her. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure she's taken money from Labour Friends of Israel. So she's gone down in my estimation in recent years. It has also emerged that she had warned Keir Starmer against appointing Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the US in 2024. She was forced to quit after it emerged she had underpaid stamp duty on a flat purchase in Hove by £40,000. Miss Rayner admitted the error, stating it was not intentional, and was later cleared of wrongdoing by the HMRC. Lucy Powell, Education Secretary. There is a return to the cabinet for Labour Deputy Leader Lucy Powell, who was sacked by Keir Starmer a year ago. Ms. Powell, who served as leader of the House of Commons from July 2024 to September 2025, is a popular figure on the Labour left. She was voted Deputy Party Leader in a runoff following Angela Rayner's resignation, but not rewarded with a government role. The Labour stalwart and MP since 2012 has held shadow cabinet posts under Keir Starmer and Jeremy Corbyn, including Shadow Education Secretary and Housing Secretary. There's a picture of her there. The Manchester Central MP will know Andy Burnham well, having worked with him both in opposition and during the Prime Minister's tenure as Mayor of Greater Manchester. And I'm going to leave the article there. because there's still quite a lot of it left and we've got a lot to get through. Let's see what Transcultural UK had to say. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Andy Burnham had a chance to choose a different path from his predecessor. But after announcing his new cabinet picks, the Prime Minister seemed set on making all the same mistakes. Burnham promised a reset, yet with the decision to keep Bridget Phillipson as Minister for Women and Equalities and Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary, the cruelty of Starmer's government will continue. Over the last 2 years, our research has shown increasing numbers of trans people being challenged and threatened in public spaces and forcibly outed at work. This is the legacy of Starmer's government, and Phillipson specifically, who have implemented a ban on trans people accessing public spaces and services we've been using for decades, encouraged a new era of gender policing, and delivered school guidance for England and Wales that is reminiscent of Section 28. Their failure to protect human rights and demonisation of migrants and asylum seekers drew international condemnation and has left the UK as an outlier on LGBTQ+ progress. With the architect of that misery remaining in post, Burnham seems unwilling to address the serious failures of the previous government, with ministers in place like Phillipson, who have lost the trust of those they are supposed to protect. A new direction that would restore equalities to a sound footing can only come from the very top of government. If Burnham really wants a fresh start, he can begin by speaking with the trans community and rejecting the regressive anti-rights posturing of the government that came before. Otherwise, all his talk of a reset in government will mean nothing at all. And they go on to say, Andy Burnham promised a reset, yet with the decision to keep Bridget Phillipson as Minister for Women and Equalities and Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary, the cruelty of Starmer's government will continue. And Danny fucking Price had this to say. This is the MK84. The Mark 84 is a £2,000 American general purpose bomb. They cost £25,000 each. Introduced during the Vietnam War, it is commonly referred to as the Hammer, due to its immense destructive capability and blast radius. The Mark 84 bombs create temperatures up to 6,300 degrees Fahrenheit. That's almost 3 times hotter than lava and hot enough to completely evaporate a human body. The fact that the Mark 84 bomb can literally evaporate human bodies means that there are likely thousands of Palestinians that will never find the remains of their loved ones. Although the precise number has not been updated, Israeli military has dropped at least 14,000 Mark 84 bombs on the Gaza Strip between October 2023 to June 2024. That's the equivalent of 6 Hiroshima nuclear bombs. The equivalent of 6 Hiroshima nuclear bombs being dropped on an area just 7 square miles larger than West Lancashire in the UK. The same West Lancashire that is approximately 26 miles northwest of Andy Burnham's family home in Goulburn, Greater Manchester. Yet, Andy Burnham's cabinet features at least 7 MPs who have accepted money from Israeli lobby groups and individuals. Yvette Cooper received around £5,000 from Red Capital, a company owned by former Labour Friends of Israel chairman Jonathan Mendelsohn and his wife. Wes Streeting received at least £26,930 in July 2024, including £4,700 from Labour Friends of Israel, funded activity and donations linked to Trevor King, David Minton and Red Capital, and another £50,000 donation from Trevor King in September 2025. Angela Rayner received £25,000 from Trevor King in 2022. Lisa Nandy received £12,000 from Trevor King, received between 2016 and 2023. Stephen Kinnock received £2,000 from Trevor King in 2017. Chris Bryant received £1,875 in benefits connected to Labour Friends of Israel and related funding between 2006 and 2016. Pat McFadden received £1,575 in Labour Friends of Israel related benefits in 2017. Andy Burnham also appointed former chair of Labour Friends of Israel, James Purnell, as his chief of staff just last month. Andy Burnham says that the Labour government didn't get it right and claims that his government will take a tougher stance on Israel by imposing further sanctions, banning trade with Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, and supporting international legal action against those responsible for alleged war crimes. Do you believe him? Well, no, I don't. I personally don't believe him. This new cabinet of his doesn't bode well at all. Not at all. And Danny fucking Price also makes the point, and he's yet to use the word genocide. I know there are some people who say that we should give Andy Burnham a chance, but in my opinion, this new cabinet of his doesn't bode well. There are too many red flags appearing already. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, let's move on. This story is from the BBC. Burnham to announce plans for new North Sea oil and gas drilling. Actually, let's start that segment again. Didn't like how that went. This next story is from BBC News. Burnham to announce plans for new North Sea oil and gas drilling. The announcement will form part of a flurry of policy measures from the incoming Prime Minister. By Jack Fenwick, political correspondent, and Alicia Curry. Andy Burnham will announce plans for new oil and gas drilling in the North Sea after he becomes Prime Minister, the BBC has been told. The Labour Party's 2024 manifesto, which the new leader said he would follow, had pledged to issue no new licences, but to honour existing ones. See, this really burns my arse, because the government is supposed to be working towards net zero, but that's not going to happen if they're going to drill for new oil. It doesn't make any sense. It's going to ruin the environment even more, drilling for new oil. What they should be working towards, in my opinion, are more wind turbines and more solar farms, more solar panels on the roofs of homes. That's what they should be working towards. More sustainable energy, not drilling for new oil. That's really pathetic. It makes me wonder why he's doing this. What vested interests are at play here? At the heart of the debate are two oil and gas fields in Scotland, Rosebank and Jackdaw, which regulators approved in 2022 and 2023 under the then Conservative government, but were overturned in 2025 after a legal challenge. The announcement will form part of a flurry of measures from Burnham, including plans to take water and energy companies under public control and a new council house building programme. He is also expected to outline new measures that will give people breathing space on the cost of living, and intends to make a dynamic start focused on delivering tangible change to people's lives as soon as possible. Whatever that means. I mean, those are just words. We need action. We need policies put in place that are actually going to make this a reality. And if he's going to stick to the fiscal rules, I don't see how these new changes are going to happen. But, we'll see. The article continues. Some in Westminster have been expecting an announcement on oil and gas in Burnham's first speech as Prime Minister after he takes over on Monday. But it is understood that plans are likely to be unveiled at a later date instead. A source close to Burnham said no final decisions in this area had yet been made. Well, we'll see what actually happens. While details of the oil and gas plans are not clear, the incoming Prime Minister is expected to uphold the manifesto commitment. One source said Burnham might pitch this as a significant change of direction, but said any other support for completely new licenses is not on the cards. Rosebank and Jackdaw both already have licenses to exclusively explore for oil and gas. The decision currently under consideration is whether to give approval to produce oil and gas there. If given the go-ahead, that would not break the manifesto commitment on licenses. The ongoing legal processes around Rosebank and Jackdaw mean that Burnham will also not be able to explicitly announce their approval, but he will likely nod to it in his first speech as Prime Minister on Monday. This decision will instead effectively fall to the new unannounced Energy Secretary, but the Labour leader could pledge to speed up existing plans to drill more in the North Sea. Many oil and gas licenses already approved in recent years remain largely undeveloped due to a variety of reasons. Sir Keir Starmer said that these gas and oil fields could be further explored, but some in the Labour Party have been frustrated that it has not happened more quickly. And there's a handy map there of where these places are. There's the Rosebank oil field, and there's Jackdaw gas field. The North Sea row has been long-standing, and Sir Keir has faced criticism for his opposition to new drilling licenses. He argued that new licenses did not translate into cheaper bills for consumers, and it said it was more important to transition to renewable sources for secure energy supplies in the future. The Conservatives and Reform UK pressured the outgoing Prime Minister to approve more drilling and said it is reckless that the country is not making use of its own resources at a time when the Iran war has increased energy prices. Sir Keir's approach was also disparaged by US President Donald Trump, who has made repeated calls to open North Sea oil and said in a social media post prior to the Prime Minister's resignation that he failed badly on energy policy. From within his own party, Sir Keir saw the debate become increasingly divisive as Labour figures questioned the party's future direction over energy policy. Some Labour MPs have urged the government to take a more liberal approach, warning that the transition away from oil and gas must protect jobs and the cost of energy bills. But others have backed the government's existing approach, arguing that expanding renewable energy is key to improving energy security and reducing the impact on climate change. Current Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, well, he's not that anymore, as we've just discovered, who is likely to get a senior cabinet role under Burnham, yes, we know that he has now, has been a staunch supporter of Labour's manifesto position and previously described the licence issued to Rosebank as climate vandalism. Yes, and I agree with him. It's just a shame that the rest of the cabinet don't seem to. There seems to be a protest against this here. Let's have a look.
Andy! Hey, Andy! Don't you know? Rosebank oil! Rosebank oil! Got to go! Listen, Andy, listen here! Rosebank is not welcome here! Listen, Andy, listen here! Rosebank is not welcome here! Listen, Andy, listen here! Rosebank is not welcome here! Rosebank is a climate crime! Rosebank is a climate crime! Rosebank is a climate crime! Labour, call 999! Rosebank is a climate crime! Labour, call 999! Rosebank is a...
Yeah, exactly. Responding to news of the plans, backbench Labour MP Rachel MacLeod said she felt uneasy about more North Sea drilling and said at the time when the UK was experiencing heat waves and wildfires, it was more important than ever to follow the climate science because we have got a climate emergency. And she's correct. We've got a climate emergency. Summers are getting hotter and hotter every year. The world is on fire and he wants to drill for more oil. Is he okay? Utterly ridiculous. The climate science is really clear. We cannot continue to use carbon-based fuels, she added. Earlier this week, before the leadership nominations deadline, Burnham was issued with a letter from the oil and gas industry and the trade unions calling on him and all other Labour MPs to back North Sea oil and gas. Well, they would, wouldn't they? It stated that support for the oil and gas industry is a signal that the country remains committed to producing, building and manufacturing. It's a signal that the government backs the people and places that have powered this country for generations, the letter added. But the suggestion of new plans has already drawn criticism from the Green Party, with MP Adrian Ramsey calling approval of new drilling the wrong response and will do nothing to bring down bills. Andy Burnham says he takes the climate and nature crisis seriously, but words are no substitute for action, he said. The science is clear. If we are serious about limiting climate breakdown, we cannot keep opening up new fossil fuel projects, he added. Yes, that's exactly right. Burnham, who returned to Parliament a month ago in a by-election, emerged as the sole leadership candidate after being backed by 379 Labour MPs, as well as 11 trade unions affiliated to the party earlier this week. And we now know, of course, that since this article was published, he's now the Prime Minister. The new Labour leader has said he is finalising his cabinet before he takes over from Sir Keir. There is growing speculation over who will take the top jobs around Burnham, with Miliband and Shabana Mahmood thought to be right in the running to replace Rachel Reeves as the Chancellor. Well, we know that's not the case. Asked why he has not announced his top team, the new Labour leader said on Friday it would be somewhat premature and would, I think, cause complete chaos if you start half a reshuffle before you're in the position. Earlier that day, in his first speech since receiving the party backing, Burnham promised he has a plan and vowed to bring back hope under his leadership. The address also offered the first glimpse of Burnham's policy agenda, which is said to include new council homes, reinvigorated high streets, and improvements to education. The former mayor of Greater Manchester has also previously outlined his vision for reforms to social care, greater public control of water and energy firms, and the devolution of power away from Whitehall. I personally believe that drilling in the North Sea for oil and gas would be a mistake, especially as the world is currently on fire and summers are hotter than ever before. And we have a climate crisis, and this is just going to make it worse. But let me know your thoughts on the issue in the comments. Okay, let's move on to the next story. This next story comes from Sky News, and it's potentially some good news for a change. Burnham scraps Starmer digital ID scheme in first major policy pledge. Scrapping digital ID is Andy Burnham's first notable policy intervention. Burnham, who is set to become Prime Minister on Monday, has now become Prime Minister, has been tight-lipped when it comes to specific policy proposals. However, he has announced that Sir Keir Starmer's much maligned digital ID is for the chop, with the money said to be spent on tackling the cost of living instead. It is understood that other parts of the government's digitisation programme, including digitising driving licences, allowing a more uniform login system and a secure digital storage app for official documents, will continue. With the last administration already scrapping the mandatory aspects of the process, it is not clear how much this announcement will save. A spokesperson for Burnham said, "One of the first things this government will do is put focus where people need it right now, creating breathing space and delivering change they can feel in their everyday lives. That means all the time and resource that was going to be spent on national ID scheme will go instead to where it's most needed, such as helping with the cost of living. The government is determined to bring power back to communities instead of hoarding it in Whitehall. We will work every day to lift this country back up to where it belongs, with growth in every postcode and hope in every heart." While Starmer had initially intended his digital ID program to be mandatory, he later U-turned after it became clear that the policy was unpopular. It was a policy that had been championed by Sir Tony Blair, of course, and his organisation, the Tony Blair Institute. An estimate from the Office of Budget Responsibility put the cost of digital ID program at £1.8 billion, although the government rejected that claim. Burnham's announcement has not said how much money they are looking to save from making this change. Julia Lopez, the Conservative Shadow Technology Secretary, said, "Labour have wasted millions of pounds on this project, and now Andy Burnham is trying to pretend he's riding to the rescue." After pressure from the Conservatives, mandatory ID was already apparently off the table. Andy Burnham now needs to explain whether that was untrue, or whether he's simply claiming credit for a decision that had already been taken. Okay, that's the end of that story. And I hate to admit it, but I think she's got a point. Was it untrue that it was already, that digital ID, that mandatory ID was already off the table? Or is he now simply trying to claim credit for a decision that had already been taken? And whether this actually changes things long term remains to be seen. On this issue, I'm prepared to give Andy Burnham the benefit of the doubt. I think digital ID was a really bad idea. So I welcome this plan to ditch it. But we'll see how this pans out in the long run, or whether it makes a comeback later on. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, next story. Okay. Hang on. Next story then. Let's move on. This story is from BBC News. Tate Brothers arrested in US as further UK charges take total to 59. Brilliant. Some really good news. This is really good news. Controversial influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Christian have been arrested in the US after British authorities issued 38 new charges against the pair. The UK's Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS, said Andrew was being charged with 7 further counts of rape, as well as charges relating to sex trafficking and indecent images of a child. Christian's charges include 2 counts of rape and 3 counts of arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation. The total number of charges against the brothers is now 59, police said. The alleged offending is said to have taken place between July 2010 and August 2017. The Tates have previously denied any wrongdoing. Following their arrest, prosecutors will begin legal proceeding to extradite the brothers, who are dual British US citizens, back to the UK, the CPS said. And apparently, Donald Trump has said that he's not going to intervene in this. He's not going to stop the legal proceedings. He's not going to prevent the extradition of the Tate brothers back to the UK. And if that's true, they are fucked. They're fucked. They're done. They're finished. And hopefully they'll spend a very long time behind bars. The article goes on. The article goes on. These charging decisions followed receipt of a further file of evidence from Bedfordshire Police and bring the total number of alleged victims in this case to 7, Malcolm McHaffey, head of Special Crime Divisions at the CPS, said. Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire Police have been investigating a number of offences in which it called a complex investigation. As a result, 38 new charges were authorised against the brothers, meaning Andrew, 39, faces a total of 42 charges in the UK, and Christian, 37, faces 17. The US Marshals confirmed to the BBC that the Tates had been taken into custody, while a US Department of Justice spokesperson said the arrests were pursuant to extradition proceedings. A lawyer who represents the Tates, Joseph McBride, said the world knows Andrew and Christian are innocent. Do they? Does the world know that Andrew and Tristan are innocent? I don't think that's correct. Quite honestly, not the whole world. A few people may think that they're innocent, but there's a difference between thinking and knowing. And it's certainly not the whole world. That's ridiculous. What an asinine thing to say. Their enemies know it best of all. Yeah, that is exactly why they've been attacked. Attacked? They haven't been attacked. They've been arrested because new evidence has come to light. For goodness sake. McBride continued, describing the new UK charges as a political hit. Yeah, right, of course. He said the new charges were designed to counter defamation action filed by the brothers in the US. We are confident that once a competent judge sees the facts, and once the Department of Justice confronts this egregious abuse of its own authority, Andrew and Tristan Tate will walk free. America does not do Britain's political dirty work, he continued. For goodness sake. Let's play this clip here.
In 2024, the CPS authorised 21 charges against Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, following our investigation into allegations of sexual offences dating back to 2012. Following the initial charges being authorised, we have continued to investigate further offences reported to both Bedfordshire Police and Hertfordshire Constabulary. As a result, 38 new charges in total have now been authorised against Andrew and Tristan Tate, bringing the total number of charges faced to 59. The charges relate to 7 victims, spanning a period from 2010 to 2017. Our officers have worked closely with the CPS and both national and international law enforcement agencies as part of this complex investigation. I can now confirm that officers from the United States have arrested both Andrew and Tristan Tate in relation to this matter overnight, and they have been detained pending ongoing legal proceedings. We understand the interest that this case will generate. We would urge the public not to speculate and to allow the legal process to be carried out correctly. I want to make it clear, there is no place for male violence against women and girls in our society, and we will continue to work tirelessly to support victims and investigate all reports made to us.
Yeah, very good. In 2024, Bedfordshire Police secured European arrest warrants for the pair to have them returned from Romania, where they are based and under criminal investigation. In June, the brothers lost a legal bid to be told the names of their UK accusers. After the CPS decided it was necessary to withhold the names of their alleged victims until legal action formally started. Good. Lawyer MacLeod, who represents several alleged British victims of Andrew Tate, welcomed the charges and said Andrew and Tristan Tate are accused of some of the most serious offences, including multiple counts of rape, human trafficking, and it's time they faced justice. And on X, I believe we've got some footage of Andrew Tate being arrested. So let's have a look. This was posted by Nick Lowles. This is the best way, this is the best news to wake up to. Andrew and Tristan Tate have been arrested in US on British extradition request. They face 59 charges of rape, trafficking for sexual exploitation, and assault and offences relating to indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. So let's take a look at this clip.
Back up. Go stack up. You know the score? Will you be able to pull it up some sort of? You gotta go.
Okay. That's the footage of Andrew and Tristan Tate being arrested there. And I think I noticed something a bit odd near the beginning. Let's have another closer look. There he is being arrested. And look, I don't know if you saw that he tried to hand his phone. Let's see if we can pause it. Look, he tries to hand his phone over to this bearded gentleman. It fell on the floor there. And I don't know if you can see that, but another one of his friends picked the phone up. Now, that is not the action, that is not the behavior of an innocent man. And I really hope the police now have that phone in custody, because I'm certain there's some incriminating evidence on that phone. These are really serious charges brought against the Tate brothers. And if they're found guilty, I really hope they stay behind bars for a very long time. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And apparently, Andrew Tate has been trying to play the victim. And it didn't go well for him. So let's take a look at that. Andrew Tate posted this: I am being held in SHU, the highest level of security which exists. No commissary, no visits, no contact with the outside world. My neighbour is a cannibal who screams throughout the night. And readers added context they thought might want to know. They thought people might want to know. They've added a community notice saying posting on social media is contact with the outside world, which is true. And of course, you can see that he's closed off comments. Zoe Gardner said, "You're being charged with noncing on top of trafficking and rape, aren't you? Get off the internet now and pipe the ever-loving fuck down forever." Larry the Cat said, "My sympathies to the cannibal." Jerry Rig Everything said, sounds like the perfect spot. Keep us updated. Gerald Ford F-150 said, night, night, keep your butthole tight. T Omega M said, going to prison. And he's posted a gif of the Tates dancing there. Political Satirical posted this meme. Get the alpha male look at Asda. And I don't know about anyone else, but I've seen loads of memes like this of people in a similar outfit to the one that Andrew Tate was arrested in, and they've been hilarious. Baron Samedi posted this gif of Hannibal Lecter. Hello, Andy. Have the lamb stopped screaming? Robo Asfor said, no contact with the outside world, submits tweet. Kung Fu Panda fanboy said, hey, it could be worse. You could have had a neighbor who's an annoying alpha male pedophile, kind of like that screaming cannibal has. Lucifer said, sounds close to the hell you deserve. Iton Fishburger simply posted, wahahaha. Hopefully your neighbour's a fine young one. If you know, you know. Ray posted a gif of Mr. Krabs playing the smallest violin in the world. Nick said, no contact with the outside world, posted live on X. High security Wi-Fi hits different. Oxroot Vector said, Andy, you should have thought of this before trafficking minors. Peter Built Griffin said, posted this meme. I'ma keep it real with you, Chief. They're bodying you in the comments, and you fucking deserve it. Bubba Wokestein posted this famous meme from Top Gear. Anyway, oh no, anyway. D posted this. Seems fair for a sex trafficker, abuser, and child pornography enthusiast, but I'm sure, given your choice of outfits, that you'd have a great time if you had a chance to socialize with other criminals. But I don't think he's wearing that outfit anymore. You know, more like prison blues or prison orange. AR posted, weren't you begging for the cops to come and arrest you a few weeks ago? You're a vile predator and you get what you get. Enjoy. British prisons are worse. And Rogue POTUS staff posted this meme. Just a man alone with his thoughts and a smartphone and a DoorDash app. Yes. Andy Tate there, trying to play the victim and getting rinsed. You love to see it. Okay, moving on. What do we have next? Okay, let's see what's next. This article is from Council Estate Media. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister who hated you and couldn't even do it competently. If historians need an image to sum up Keir Starmer's premiership, they aren't going to find anything historic. He doesn't have a single accomplishment to his name. Even bad prime ministers have that one thing they can brag about, not Starmer. There's literally nothing he can point to and say, I did that. Now hold on a minute. Starmer slams his teacup down with indignation. I changed the Labour Party for the better. Yes, that's right, Keith. You did a brilliant job. You pissed off the unions and cut your party membership in half. You parachuted Luke Akehurst into Labour safe seats and made them unsafe. And you pretended all the people who opposed genocide, hate Jews and love terrorism. What a fucking record. Round of applause, Keith. Well fucking done. Yeah, I don't think I could have put that better myself. The article goes on. The most memorable image of Starmer was him squeezing out tears of self-pity during his resignation speech. Other than that, there is nothing. At least Liz Truss was hilarious. Starmer almost committed genocide against his own people by boring us all to death. All the while he was helping Israel carry out an actual genocide in Gaza. Yes, I think she does have the right to murder Palestinians, he kept telling us. By she, he meant Israel. Weird fucking creep. If I was asked to describe Starmer's time in charge, the genocide wouldn't even be the first thing that springs to mind. Don't get me wrong, it's unquestionably the worst thing he did, but genocide is almost to be expected of a British Prime Minister. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the terms and conditions. What is most striking about the last 2 years is just how proudly Starmer showed his contempt for those he's supposed to represent. The way he wore that hatred on his sleeve was truly impressive. Most politicians hide the fact that they think voters are morons. Starmer treated it like mind-numbingly dull performance art. He looked at the Labour membership, the people who actually knocked on doors in the rain and saw enemies. Want cheaper groceries? Far left lunatic. Fancy nationalising water so you're not paddling amongst turds? Dangerous extremist. Opposing dropping bombs on civilians? Congratulations, you're now on a watch list between Tommy Robinson and that one guy who still likes momentum on Facebook. Starmer didn't bother with the usual pretense. He openly sneered at us and then convinced himself that his low approval rating was some sort of hate crime. He expected us to thank him for fucking us over. Well done, Keith. You made the tough choices. Interesting that none of those choices involved taxing the rich. They all involved telling some poor sod to cut down on porridge and stop using the washing machine. Yeah, exactly. Starmer made Labour electable again by winning fewer votes than Corbyn and taking advantage of a right-wing split. This won him a massive majority in our stupid electoral system. He had no excuse not to deliver. Unfortunately, he thought he had a green light to be a prick. His entire strategy involved alienating everyone who slightly disagreed with him, unaware that not a single person agreed with him. To be acceptable in Starmer's Britain, you had to support Israel, but never say the quiet part out loud. Blame immigrants for crowded A&E departments and agree that the solution to every problem was to kick the disabled a bit harder. You see someone in a wheelchair? Do your bit for the country, tip them over. The irony here is that the flag shaggers hated him too. Yeah, that's right. It didn't matter how much he tried to pander to the flag shaggers or cater to the far right, they just hated him all the more. I mean, you know, what is the point in voting for Timu reform when you can just vote for the real thing? All Starmer succeeded in doing was to legitimize the far right the policies of the far right, and so I made people think, well, if the far right policies are legitimate now, well, I may as well vote for either reform or restore. Fuck Labour. And also even though he wrote for the Sun and tried to pander to the right-wing press, it didn't work. But they still hated him. In fact, they hated him even more. Because nothing's ever good enough for them. The irony here is that the flag... Oh, I've read that bit. It was the funniest own goal in modern politics. Even the divorced dads who climbed lampposts to hang Union Jacks knew that Starmer was just pandering. They knew he stood for absolutely nothing. Yeah, exactly. Starmer got into politics for all the wrong reasons. He wanted to get into the line of work where you represent literal demons in exchange for your soul. Unfortunately, he didn't read the small print. He didn't know that he would age 20 years in just 2. He had no clue that he was going to live in the Ghostbusters 2 painting with Tony Blair. He thought he was fucking everyone else over, not himself. He thought he was so clever when he pretended to be Corbyn with nice hair and a better suit. Remember the 10 socialist pledges? He doesn't. He couldn't name a single one of them. The man served in Corbyn's shadow cabinet, then spent years telling us Corbyn's Labour was morally bankrupt. You were literally part of that team, Keith. Yeah, he's the one who's morally bankrupt. If anyone's morally bankrupt, it's Starmer for all the genocide enabling. He's the one who's morally bankrupt. What a wanker. Remember when the media gloated about how clever Starmer was for lying to get votes? Now he wants to manipulate algorithms so the mainstream media is forced down your throat and alternative media dies. And that's another thing about Andy Burnham. I really hope that this is something that Andy Burnham changes. I hope that he ditches this policy. But I'm skeptical. I'm a skeptic. I don't think he will, unfortunately. But let's see. Hopefully I'll be proved wrong. The entire establishment wants you to be controlled, not represented. If you read newspapers, you're just subjecting yourself to brainwashing. It's voluntary MK Ultra programming. You get angry at small boats instead of big ones. Why the fuck would you do that to yourself? Everything Starmer did made our lives worse. He built a surveillance state, sold your data to Palantir, restricted protests so heavily you need planning permission and risk assessment just to wave a placard, and he was surprised when people kept protesting anyway. The anti-Semitism card had been played so many times it was basically a loyalty point scheme. People just rolled their eyes and carried on calling out evil. Now that's the thing. If you use the anti-Semitism card too often, you cheapen the term anti-Semitism. It loses its meaning. It loses its impact. And you just make real anti-Semitism worse. Starmer didn't understand that authoritarianism stops working when huge numbers of people are so horrified by their government they're prepared to risk jail or worse. Starmer's attack on our civil liberties didn't come out of nowhere. It was intricately tied to his foreign policy, which boiled down to one question. How do you get away with keeping Israel happy? Every terrible decision, every U-turn, every moment of moral cowardice traced back to the same place. The man couldn't even resign without permission. Now Labour's great hope is Andy Burnham, Starmer with a northern accent and a sad face for Gaza, Iraq war cheerleader, IRGC prosecution enthusiast, tough on immigration. He'll tell you how he feels your pain while quietly implementing the same agenda. He's the British Kamala Harris, Tony Blair in a flat cap. Problem is, people are so desperate for change, they'll get mad at you for pointing out the truth. Same thing happened in the US whenever anyone mentioned Genocide Joe's dementia. Remember those freaks who put their hands over their ears at the DNC convention? We have those types over here too. Burnham will exploit them for as long as he can. You can expect I can't do anything because of the mess we've inherited until the day he hands the number 10 keys to Nigel Farage. Well, hopefully it won't come to that. But, well, time will tell. Starmer's departure wasn't karma. It was more like the universe shrugging and saying, even I can't watch this shit anymore. The man who spent years calling everyone else unelectable somehow made himself unelectable faster than you can say two-child welfare cap. A war criminal who wasn't even good at being a war criminal, an authoritarian who wasn't actually scary, a Labour leader who hated workers, strong against the weak and weak against anyone adjacent to Epstein. Don't worry though, Starmer wasn't actually on the Epstein client list. He just obeyed the people who were. This is how he changed the Labour Party. A brilliant article there by Council on State Media, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, one more story and then I'll call it a night. This next story is from the Times. George Cottrell opened accounts days before mystery reform donation. Sunday Times revelations raise new questions over the provenance of £500,000 gifted to Nigel Farage's party by the convicted fraudster's mother. The convicted criminal who funded Nigel Farage opened an account with an obscure overseas payments company days before it was used to channel an unexplained £500,000 donation to Reform UK. George Cottrell became a client of Oneify, a little-known Australian firm that moves crypto and traditional currency across borders in late May 2024. Within a fortnight, Oneify was used as a conduit for donations whose ultimate source could not be traced by the National Crime Agency. This keeps getting worse and worse. This keeps getting worse and worse for Nigel Farage. And this stunt that he's pulled, resigning and forcing a by-election in Clacton is not going to solve anything. It's not going to make his problems go away. He's only delaying the inevitable, because now the National Crime Agency are investigating this, and they're not going to stop investigating just because he's no longer an MP. And so this is not going to go anywhere. And he's finished, in my opinion. It's not a matter of if anymore, it's a matter of when. He may have delayed it temporarily while this by-election takes place, but he's only kicked the can down the road a little bit. There's going to be repercussions for this. There's going to be consequences. An initial £1 million was deposited into Britain Means Business, a UK company owned by Richard Tice, who was then leading reform. And that's the other thing. That's the other part of this story. Richard Tice is implicated in all of this as well. Richard Tice and his company Britain Means Business needs to be thoroughly investigated too. And hopefully he'll get the consequences that he deserves. Tice says that Fiona Cottrell, George's mother, made the donation. However, it is unknown whether the money originated from George Cottrell's own newly opened Oneify account. According to The Guardian, his mother received several six-figure tranches of cash from an unknown source shortly before making the £1 million donation payment via the platform. This sounds dodgy as fuck. This needs to be investigated. We need to know what this source is. We need to know. We need to be told where this money ultimately came from. Tice then transferred half of the sum, £500,000, to Reform, his own company, rather than Fiona Cottrell was listed as the donor on Electoral Commission's filings. The transactions, alongside other payments, which are the subject of a continuing Metropolitan Police investigation, mean Fiona Cottrell had a role in 35% of all funds received by Reform during the election campaign. The disclosures raised questions over whether George Cottrell, who was already bankrolling Farage's staff, security and social media output, was behind donations to Reform. His mother was a permissible donor because she appeared on the UK electoral roll at the time. Cottrell, who is a tax resident in Montenegro, also known as Posh George, says he was eligible to donate as an overseas voter by the time of the election, but it is unclear if he held this status at the time of the payments. Concealing a political donation can lead to a substantial fine or even a jail term. Let's hope that they end up behind bars. Cottrell, 32, is a crypto gambler who was convicted of wire fraud in the United States in 2017 after offering to launder money on the dark web. His 67-year-old mother is a self-described retired stylist who lives in a cottage in rural Worcestershire and had no history of political activity or donations before the 2024 general election. And there's a picture of her as a child, taken in 1971. Apparently, she's the daughter of Lord and Lady Menton. Since June last year, Fiona Cottrell has been at the centre of a Scotland Yard inquiry into a separate £500,000 donation to Reform in her own name, rather than Tice's firm, during the election campaign. It is unclear whether the £500,000 deposited through Onify is also part of the criminal inquiry. George Cottrell has never previously been linked to Onify, based just outside Sydney. He has continued to use it to make and receive payments. Asked this month if Cottrell transferred money to his mother before she made donations to Reform, his lawyers at Carter Ruck said, "Our client has confirmed his instructions that any donations by his mother have been entirely her own decision." The lawyers added, "He therefore declines to engage with your wider questions." Cottrell stood by his position this weekend, with lawyers saying he would not be drawn on private information regarding banking transactions. But we'll see. The truth will out. We'll see what actually happens. We'll see what comes of this case. Election is called, then comes the cash. Days before the £1 million was deposited in Tice's company accounts, Cottrell opened an account with Onify via his company in Montenegro, the tiny Balkan nation where he lives and is involved in a local crypto gambling platform. He became a Onify customer on May the 28th, 2024, less than a week after Rishi Sunak called a snap general election. The account holder was named as Private Family Office, the Montenegrin company he wholly owns, and the entity he was told to deposit funds in was Onify's UK banking partner, Settle Go Solutions Limited, as Onify is not registered in the UK, and as a regulated financial entity, Settle Go handles its payments in the UK. At that point, Cottrell had been secretly funding Farage for months. His mentor's public position was that he would not stand to become an MP. There's a photo of the two there. Farage and Cottrell in Clacton during the 2024 election campaign. However, on June the 3rd, Farage announced he would return to frontline politics as Reform UK's leader and its candidate for Clacton in Essex. Within a week, £1 million was sent from Wannify to the accounts of Britain Means Business. Tice's company had previously operated under the name Leave Means Leave and conducted campaigning activities in support of Brexit. There is no reference to the payment in its unaudited accounts for the year. Tice, who became the MP for Boston and Skegness at the election, has claimed the £1 million came entirely from Fiona Cottrell. He said she was a legally permissible donor who came from a very successful aristocratic family for whom his family had known for 5 decades. However, The Guardian had reported that before she made the payments, transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars were repeatedly made into her accounts. I don't know the technical term for that. What is it? Structuring? I don't know. But it sounds, it doesn't sound above board. I mean, there may be some legal loopholes that they've gone through. It may be above board legally, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait for the legal process to take its course. But I'm sure the truth will come out eventually. And there's a photograph of Tice there with Cottrell and a couple of others. Richard Tice dining at Mayfair Restaurant in May 2023 with George Cottrell and his then girlfriend, the reality TV star Georgia Toffolo. The newspaper said the NCA was unable to determine the origin of the funds and contacted AUSTRAC, the Australian Anti-Money Laundering Bureau, for help. It appears that neither agency was able to verify that the cash was actually hers. Once the £1 million had been sent through Wannify, Britain Means Business deposited half of it, £500,000, into the accounts of Reform UK in 2 instalments of £250,000 on June the 10th and June the 12th. And there's a handy chart here. How Wannify was used to transfer £500,000 to Reform. George Cottrell, criminal, opens accounts with Wannify on May the 28th, 2024. His mother, Fiona Cottrell, receives cash from unknown source and transfers £1 million to Wannify in June 2024. Wannify owner Dane Cornish, £1 million to Britain Means Business owner Richard Tice. And he deposits 2 deposits of £250,000, one on June the 10th and one on June the 12th to Reform UK owner Nigel Farage. From Australia to Westminster, Wannify says it helps clients move crypto and traditional currency globally from Wollongong, its headquarters near Sydney, to Westminster. The company, founded in 2016, created its website 3 years ago, but otherwise has no public footprint. It is wholly owned by a shell company by Dane Cornish, a 43-year-old Australian who calls himself an experienced entrepreneur on his LinkedIn profile. Excuse me. His business partner, who is not connected to the company on paper, but with whom he is involved in other offshore crypto ventures, is Daniel Jeffries, a British citizen currently seeking residency in Monaco. Jeffries, 62, made his money providing payment processing systems for pornography and gambling companies. Jeffries declined to comment. Dane Cornish left and Daniel Jeffries writes. Set or Go, OneFi's UK partner, is owned by Ozan Ozerk, a crypto Norwegian millionaire. In November, the Turkish authorities launched an investigation into a separate network of his companies, which are accused of introducing criminal assets derived from illegal betting activities into the country's financial system. Ozerk has previously denied wrongdoing. He told the Sunday Times that the allegations are matters for his companies, not him. And there's a photo of him there. George Cottrell has continued to make and receive payments as a OneFi customer as recently as this year. He also has connections to Cornish, Jeffries and Ozerk. Beachside glimpse of Posh George's operations. Between September the 17th and 19th, 2025, Jeffries held a party to mark his wife's 60th birthday in Tivat, the port city of Montenegro where Cottrell was based. The Sunday Times understands that Jeffries arrived on a yacht, Reliance, which costs €450,000, nearly £383,000 a week to rent, and negotiated for two internationally renowned DJs, Pete Ton and Cameron Jack, to headline a weekend of partying at nightclubs and beach resorts. Yeah, it's not the small boats, it's not the people on small boats we should be concerned with. It's the people who can afford to hire big boats like this one. One evening, the party gathered for dinner where, according to sources, Jeffries was joined at the main table by Cottrell himself. Sitting with them was Ozerk, while Cornish was at a nearby table. On another night, guests were invited to party at a bar above Salon Privé, a crypto casino with which Cottrell is closely involved. The venue belongs to the owner of Tether.bet, the crypto gambling platform in which Cottrell is a key player behind the scenes and sometime customer. The casino also housed a crypto ATM, a machine which receives cash and transfers it into digital currency, which local politicians said belonged to Cottrell and which was at the center of a police investigation in 2023. Parked behind the casino are 4 armed vehicles owned by the casino's holding company and emblazoned with the words "Cash in Transit." And I'm just going to skip to the conclusion. Farage under scrutiny. The relationship between Farage and Cottrell was well known in Westminster, but escaped serious public scrutiny until an Insight report this month. The Sunday Times revealed that Cottrell had provided in-kind benefits including staff, security, transport, social media output, and accommodation for Farage, who failed to declare the support upon entering Parliament in 2024, an apparent breach of the rules. Farage stepped down as an MP and called a by-election in Clacton days after the Sunday Times investigation was published. In his speech on July the 7th, he cited the report and mounting questions over his acceptance of an undisclosed £5 million gift from Harborne, a crypto billionaire, to argue that he was a victim of an establishment attack. He denies breaking any rules and has said that the public, not the parliamentary authorities, can adjudicate on his conduct. That's not how justice works, fella. That's not how things work at all. As a result of his decision, investigations into both affairs have been suspended. But as I've already said, he's just delaying the inevitable. These investigations will continue when he becomes MP again. And since the National Crime Agency is now involved, I don't see this going anywhere anytime soon. He's up to his neck in shit. Since his speech, more allegations have emerged about Cottrell. Insight revealed that his mother was at the centre of a Scotland Yard inquiry into potential offences, including hundreds of thousands of pounds of donations to Reform, being disguised. The Guardian then reported that Cottrell and his mother had been questioned as part of the inquiry. Concealing a donation can lead to a fine or a prison sentence of up to a year. As it stands, Farage's principal opponent in the Clacton by-election, scheduled for August the 13th, is the satirical candidate Count Binface. Actually, there are 33 candidates opposing Farage. But I suppose Count Binface is the main opponent. He's the main opponent who opposes him in the election. If Farage wins, he will face the immediate prospect of the investigations, the first into Harborne, the other into Cottrell, beginning afresh. He could face sanctions, including his suspension from the House of Commons, potentially leading to yet another by-election. He will also contend with the conjoining police investigations involving Cottrell and the fraudster's mother. In the 6 weeks between the snap election being called and polling on July the 4th, 2024, Fiona Cottrell apparently gave more than 35% of all funding to Reform UK, either directly or indirectly. And there's a useful chart here. Who funded Reform in the 2024 general election? Fiona Cottrell had a role in over a third of the party's donations during the snap election period. And her bar is in yellow here. 35%. Zia Youssef, 9%. Jeremy Hoskins, 6%. David George Plummer Liley, 6%. Malcolm Robertson, 5%. Duncan McKay, 5%. Even Management Limited, 5%. All other donors less than 100,000, 29%. So you can see Fiona Cottrell has the lion's share of donations here. And I think I'm going to leave the article there. I think I've read enough from this article to give you a clear picture of what's been going on. in calling this, in resigning and forcing this by-election, Nigel Farage has only succeeded in delaying the inevitable, and he's going to have to face the consequences of his actions sooner or later. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and if you're new, do subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay in the loop. Okay, bye for now.